The gunshot that killed Bridget Keller's husband on their wedding night still echoed in her nightmares 3 years later, and she had sworn never to let another man close enough to shatter what remained of her heart. Trinity, Texas in the summer of 1878 was a town that knew how to mind its own business, which suited Bridget just fine. She ran the general store her late husband had purchased just days before their doomed wedding, serving customers with efficient politeness, but never warmth. The locals had learned not to ask personal questions, not to offer sympathies she would not accept, and certainly not to suggest she might consider remarrying. At 24 years old, Bridget had built walls around herself so thick that most people assumed she preferred solitude to companionship. The bell above the store's front door chimed on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon, and Bridget looked up from her inventory ledger to see a stranger walking in. He was tall, probably in his late 20s, with sun-weathered skin and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. His clothes marked him as a working cowboy, dusty from the trail, and his boots made solid sounds against her wooden floor. But it was his eyes that made her pause, a clear gray that seemed to look at the world with unusual gentleness for a man who clearly spent his days breaking horses and driving cattle. "Afternoon," he said, removing his hat. "Name's Isaac Vaughn. I'm the new foreman at the Rockingham Ranch, just started yesterday. Figured I'd come into town and introduce myself proper-like." Bridget nodded curtly. "Bridget Keller. I run this store. If you need supplies, I can help you. Otherwise, the saloon is down the street." Isaac's expression did not change at her cold tone. "Actually, I do need supplies. Ranch owner gave me a list." He pulled a folded paper from his shirt pocket and handed it over. She took it without letting their fingers touch, scanning the items quickly. Standard ranch supplies, nothing unusual. "I can have this ready by tomorrow afternoon." "That would be fine, thank you." He did not move toward the door, instead looking around the well-organized store with what seemed like genuine interest. "You have a good setup here. Everything a person could need. I try to keep things well stocked." "I imagine that takes a lot of work, running a place like this on your own." Bridget's spine stiffened. "I manage just fine." "I am sure you do," Isaac said mildly. "Did not mean to suggest otherwise. I just meant it as an observation. You clearly do excellent work." She was not sure how to respond to that, so she said nothing, turning her attention back to the ledger as if he had already left. Most men would have taken the hint, either offended or disinterested, but Isaac simply replaced his hat and moved toward the door. "I will see you tomorrow then, Mrs. Keller. Thank you for your help." After he left, Bridget found herself inexplicably irritated, though she could not say exactly why. He had been perfectly polite, had not overstayed his welcome, and had treated her with respect. Perhaps that was what bothered her. She had grown accustomed to men either avoiding her entirely or treating her with the awkward pity reserved for young widows. Isaac Vaughn had done neither. She tried to put him out of her mind as she went about closing the store that evening, but his gray eyes kept appearing in her thoughts. She cursed herself for noticing, for allowing even that small crack in the armor she had built. The next afternoon, Isaac returned as promised. This time he was cleaner, his hair still damp as if he had bathed recently, and he smelled faintly of soap rather than trail dust. "Your supplies are ready," Bridget said before he could speak. "Everything is boxed and tallied. It comes to $17.35. Isaac counted out the money carefully, placing each coin on the counter. As he did, he said, "I heard in town that you make the best apple pie in Trinity. The ranch cook mentioned it specifically. I do not bake pies for sale." "Oh, I was not trying to order one, just making conversation." He smiled slightly. "Though I admit, I do love a good apple pie." My mother used to make them when I was growing up in Missouri. Despite herself, Bridget felt a flicker of curiosity. What brought you to Texas? Work, mostly. I have been cowboying since I was 18, moving from ranch to ranch, learning the trade. But I am 27 now, and I figured it was time to find a place to settle down, maybe save up to buy some land of my own someday. He picked up the first box of supplies. The Rockingham seemed like a good opportunity. The owner is fair, the land is good, and the town seems decent. It is quiet, Bridget said, which was the most positive thing she could say about anywhere. Quiet sounds good to me. I have had enough of wild towns and rough living. He hefted the box easily. I will need to make a couple trips for all this. I can help carry. No need, Isaac interrupted gently. I have got it. You just saved me the trouble of gathering all this myself. That is help enough. He made 3 trips, never complaining, never trying to draw her into further conversation, but also never seeming put off by her terseness. When the last box was loaded onto his wagon, he tipped his hat to her. Thank you again, Mrs. Keller. I expect I will be seeing you regularly for supplies. Most ranchers come in once a month. Then I will see you in a month, he said easily, and drove away. Bridget told herself she was relieved. One less person to deal with. But as the days passed, she found herself thinking about their brief conversations more than she cared to admit. There had been something different about Isaac Vaughn, something that unsettled the careful equilibrium she had established in her life. 3 weeks later, on a particularly hot afternoon when business was slow, the bell chimed again. Bridget looked up, expecting Mrs. Patterson coming for her weekly order of tea and fabric. Instead, Isaac Vaughn walked in, hat in hand. Afternoon, Mrs. Keller, Mr. Vaughn. I was not expecting you for another week. I know, this is not a supply run. He approached the counter, and she noticed he seemed slightly nervous, which was a change from his usual easy confidence. I wanted to ask if you would consider having dinner with me. There is a restaurant here in town, nothing fancy, but the food is supposed to be good. Bridget felt her chest tighten. No, may I ask why not? Because I am not interested in courting Mr. Vaughn. I thought I made that clear. You did not make anything clear, actually. You were professional, which I respect. But I am interested in getting to know you better, and I thought dinner might be a pleasant way to do that. His gray eyes were steady on hers. If you are not interested, I will respect that, but I wanted to ask honest and direct. I am not interested, Bridget said firmly. I was married once. That is enough. Something flickered in Isaac's expression, something that might have been understanding or sadness. I heard about what happened to your husband. I am truly sorry. That must have been terrible. I do not discuss it. Fair enough. He replaced his hat. I apologize for bothering you, Mrs. Keller. It will not happen again. As he turned to leave, Bridget felt a sudden, unexpected stab of something that might have been regret, but she pushed it down firmly. She had made the right choice. Getting close to someone again meant risking the kind of pain she had barely survived the first time. But Isaac Vaughn proved to be a man of his word in an unexpected way. He did not ask her to dinner again, but he did not disappear either. He came by the store every few weeks for supplies, always polite, always respectful, never pushing boundaries. But he also made a point of speaking to her, small conversations about the weather, about ranch life, about nothing in particular. At first, Bridget kept her responses brief and discouraging. But Isaac was persistent in the gentlest possible way. He never seemed offended by her coldness, never acted hurt or angry. He simply continued being kind, continued treating her like a person worth talking to rather than a widow to be pitied or avoided. One afternoon in early autumn, Isaac came in carrying a basket. Before you say no, he said quickly, This is not a romantic gesture. The ranch cook made way too much stew yesterday, and I remembered you mentioning once that you do not always have time to cook proper meals for yourself. I just thought you might appreciate it. If you do not want it, no offense taken." Bridget looked at the basket, then at his face. He seemed genuinely earnest, not manipulative or calculating. "That is thoughtful," she said slowly. "Thank you. You are welcome." He set the basket on the counter. "There is bread in there too, still warm." After he left, Bridget took the basket into the back room where she had a small living area. The stew was indeed excellent, rich and hearty, and the bread was perfect. As she ate, she found herself thinking about Isaac's consistent kindness, about how he never seemed to expect anything in return. The next time he came in, she had baked extra biscuits that morning. "For the stew," she said, handing him a small package, "to say thank you." Isaac's face lit up with a smile that transformed his features from merely handsome to genuinely beautiful. "That is very kind of you, Mrs. Keller." "I appreciate it. Bridget," she said before she could stop herself. "You can call me Bridget. Then you should call me Isaac." It was a small thing, the exchange of first names, but it felt significant. Bridget told herself it meant nothing, that she was simply being neighborly, but part of her knew she was lying. As the weeks turned into months, Isaac became a regular presence in Bridget's life. He never again asked her to dinner or made any overtly romantic overtures, but he found small ways to be helpful. When her store needed repairs, he fixed them. When supplies were too heavy, he helped her unload them. When she seemed tired, he made her laugh with stories about ranch mishaps. Bridget found her walls beginning to crack despite her best efforts. Isaac was patient in a way she had never experienced before. He seemed content simply to be near her, to talk with her, to exist in her orbit without demanding more than she was willing to give. One cold November evening, as Isaac was leaving after helping her move some heavy barrels, she called out, "Isaac." He turned immediately. "Yes. Would you like to have coffee? I mean, here in the store. Nothing fancy, just coffee. You have been very helpful lately, and I thought—" She trailed off, suddenly uncertain. Isaac's smile was warm but not triumphant. "I would love that, Bridget. Thank you." They sat in the back room on mismatched chairs, drinking coffee and talking about inconsequential things. It was comfortable in a way Bridget had not expected, easy and natural. Isaac told her about growing up on a farm in Missouri, about learning to work with horses, about the satisfaction of a hard day's work. Bridget found herself sharing small details about her own childhood in Tennessee, about her parents who had died when she was young, about how she had ended up in Texas. She did not talk about her husband, and Isaac did not ask. But as the evening grew late and he finally stood to leave, he paused at the door. "I really enjoy your company, Bridget. I want you to know that. There is no pressure, no expectations. I just wanted you to know." After he left, Bridget sat in the darkening store for a long time, her coffee growing cold in her hands. She was terrified, she realized. Terrified of the warmth growing in her chest when she thought about Isaac. Terrified of the way she had started looking forward to his visits. Terrified of wanting something she thought she had closed herself off from forever. Winter arrived, bringing cold winds and occasional frost. Isaac continued his patient courtship that was not quite a courtship, always present but never demanding, always kind but never pushing. Bridget found herself softening despite her fears, found herself smiling more, found herself actually looking forward to each day. One December afternoon, as snow flurries began to fall outside, Isaac came in stamping his feet and brushing snow from his coat. "It is getting cold out there," he said. "Feels like we might get a real storm." "The almanac predicted a hard winter," Bridget said, looking up from her accounts. Isaac approached the counter, his expression more serious than usual. "Bridget, I need to be honest with you about something." Her heart seized. This was it, she thought. He was leaving, or he had met someone else, or he was tired of waiting for her to be ready for something she might never be ready for. "I have been patient," Isaac continued, "because I understand you have been hurt, and I respect that. But I need you to know that my feelings for you are genuine and deep. I am falling in love with you, Bridget. Maybe I have been falling in love with you since the first day I walked into this store." Bridget felt panic rising in her throat. "Isaac, I know," he said gently, cutting her off. "I know you are not ready, I know you might never be ready, but I needed to be honest with you about where I stand, and I want you to know something else." He took a deep breath. "I will wait as long as it takes. If you need a year or 5 years or forever to heal, I will wait. And if you decide you can never let anyone in again, I will accept that too. But I am not going anywhere, Bridget. I am here and I will be here for as long as you need." Tears sprang to Bridget's eyes, the first tears she had allowed herself in months. "You do not understand what you are saying. You do not know what happened, then tell me," Isaac said softly. "If you want to, if it would help, I am listening." And suddenly, for the first time since that horrible night 3 years ago, Bridget wanted to tell someone, needed to tell someone. The words came slowly at first, then faster, pouring out of her like poison she had been holding inside for too long. His name was Thomas. "We met in Dallas where I was working as a seamstress. He was charming and handsome, and he swept me off my feet. We got engaged after 3 months. He said he wanted to start a business in a smaller town, somewhere we could build a life together. He bought this store, sight unseen, and we traveled to Trinity to get married and start our new life." She paused, swallowing hard. Isaac waited silently, his eyes full of compassion but not pity. The wedding was small, just the preacher and a few locals. Everything seemed perfect. "We came back to the room above the store that first night, and I was so happy, so full of hope. And then someone knocked on the door. Thomas went to answer it, and there was a man standing there, a man I had never seen before." Bridget's hands were shaking now, and she clasped them together tightly. "The man said Thomas owed him money, a gambling debt from Dallas. Thomas said he would pay, but he needed time. The man said time was up, and then he shot Thomas right there in the doorway. My husband died on our wedding night, bled out in my arms while I screamed for help. By the time anyone came, Thomas was dead and the man was gone." "Did they catch him?" Isaac asked quietly. "No. The sheriff tried, but the man had vanished. I found out later that Thomas had been deeper in debt than anyone knew. He had bought this store with borrowed money, money he could not pay back. Our whole life together was built on lies." Bridget looked down at her hands. "I was not just grieving a husband. I was grieving the man I thought he was, the life I thought we would have. Everything was a lie." "Not everything," Isaac said. "Your feelings were real even if he was not honest about his circumstances. Your hope was real. Your love was real. And look where it got me." Bridget's voice was bitter. "I trusted someone, let myself love someone, and it destroyed me. I cannot do that again, Isaac. I cannot survive that kind of pain again." Isaac was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I am not Thomas. I do not gamble, I do not lie, and I do not owe anyone anything. I work hard, I save my money, and I treat people with respect. I am not asking you to trust me blindly, Bridget. I am asking you to give yourself the chance to learn who I really am slowly at your own pace. What if I cannot? What if I am too broken?" "You are not broken," Isaac said firmly. "You are wounded, and that is different. Wounds can heal given time and care. And you will really wait. Even though I might never be ready," Isaac met her eyes steadily. "I will wait as long as it takes. That is a promise." The snow was falling harder now, accumulating on the windowsills. Bridget looked at Isaac, at his honest face and patient eyes, and felt something shift inside her. She was still afraid, desperately afraid, but maybe fear did not have to be the thing that ruled her life. "Stay for dinner," she said quietly. "Just dinner, nothing more, but stay." Isaac's smile was like sunrise. "I would be honored." That dinner was the first of many. Through the cold winter months, Isaac and Bridget developed a routine. He would come by the store several times a week, sometimes for supplies, sometimes just to talk, and often he would stay for a simple meal. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Bridget learned that Isaac had lost his father when he was young, killed in a farming accident. She learned that he loved horses more than almost anything, that he wanted to raise cattle on his own land someday, that he had been engaged once before, but it had ended mutually when they both realized they wanted different things. He was honest about his past, about his mistakes and his hopes, and gradually Bridget began to believe that he was genuine. For his part, Isaac never pushed. He let Bridget set the pace of their relationship, never trying to hold her hand or kiss her, never making demands or expressing frustration with her slowness to open up. He simply showed up, consistently and reliably, proving through actions rather than words that he was trustworthy. Spring arrived, bringing warmth and new growth. One April evening, as they sat on the porch behind the store watching the sunset, Isaac said, "I have been saving money. In another year or so, I should have enough to buy some land and start my own small ranch." "That is wonderful," Bridget said, genuinely happy for him. "You have worked hard for it." "I have been thinking about where I might buy. There is some good land available about 5 miles outside of Trinity, close enough to town but far enough for privacy." He paused. "I wanted to tell you my plans because, well, I hope you will be part of my future, Bridget. No pressure," he added quickly. "I am just being honest about what I am working toward." Bridget felt her heart beating faster. "Isaac, I still do not know if I can, I know," he said gently. "And that is all right. My plans do not have a deadline. They are just plans." But something was changing in Bridget. The fear was still there, but it was being slowly overwhelmed by something else, something warm and bright that she had thought was dead inside her. She was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could trust again. That maybe Isaac Vaughn was a man worth taking a risk for. One warm May evening, after a pleasant dinner, Bridget found herself standing very close to Isaac as he prepared to leave. He looked down at her and she could see the love in his eyes, love he had never hidden but also never used to manipulate her. "Isaac," she said softly, "I think I am falling in love with you, and that terrifies me." His expression was tender. "I know it does. And I am honored that you trust me enough to even say that. I do not know if I will ever be fully free of my fear. I do not know if I will ever be the kind of woman who can love without reservation." "Bridget," Isaac said, reaching out slowly to give her time to pull away and gently taking her hand. It was the first time he had initiated physical contact, and his touch was warm and solid. "You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be fearless. You just have to be you, exactly as you are. That is more than enough for me." Bridget looked down at their joined hands, at the way her smaller hand fit into his calloused one. She thought about the past year, about Isaac's endless patience and consistent kindness. She thought about how he had shown up, day after day, asking nothing except the chance to be near her. And she realized that somewhere along the way, without meaning to, she had begun to trust him. Not blindly, not naively, but with the clear-eyed trust of someone who has taken the time to truly know another person. "I want to try," she whispered. "I want to try to be with you, really be with you, even though I am still afraid." Isaac lifted his free hand slowly, telegraphing his movements, and gently cupped her face. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering with words, Bridget rose on her toes and kissed him. It was tentative and brief, but it was real. When she pulled back, Isaac's eyes were shining. "I will never hurt you intentionally," he said. "I promise you that. I will be honest, I will be faithful, and I will love you for as long as you will let me." "I believe you," Bridget said, and realized it was true. She believed him. Their courtship changed after that night, becoming warmer and more openly romantic. Isaac still moved slowly, still gave Bridget space to adjust, but now there were kisses goodnight, walks together through town, dinners at the restaurant he had invited her to so many months before. Bridget found herself smiling more, laughing more, feeling more alive than she had in years. The town noticed, of course. Trinity was small, and Bridget had been a solitary figure for so long that her sudden happiness with Isaac Vaughn was a source of considerable interest. Most people seemed genuinely pleased for her. A few older women made pointed comments about proper mourning periods, but Bridget found she did not care. She had mourned long enough. She was ready to live again. In late June, Isaac took her to see the land he was planning to buy. It was beautiful, rolling grassland with a creek running through it and a few scattered trees. "I want to build a house here," he said, pointing to a slight rise with a view of the surrounding countryside. "Nothing fancy at first, just something solid and well built. And then I will start small with cattle, maybe a few horses, and build up from there." Bridget could picture it clearly, could see the life Isaac was planning, and for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine being part of that life, part of that future. "It is perfect," she said. "You will build something wonderful here." Isaac turned to her, taking both her hands in his. "Bridget Keller, I love you. I have loved you since nearly the first moment I saw you, and that love has only grown stronger every day. I know we have not been officially courting for very long, but I have waited patiently for almost a year to be with you, and I know my own heart." He dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. "I want to build my future with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to work this land and build a home and maybe, if you are willing, raise a family together. Will you marry me?" Bridget looked down at Isaac, at his honest face and hopeful eyes, and felt tears streaming down her cheeks. But these were not tears of pain or fear. These were tears of joy, of relief, of finally letting go of the past and embracing the future. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, I will marry you." Isaac stood and swept her into his arms, kissing her deeply. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and smiling, he slipped the ring onto her finger. It was simple but beautiful, a single small diamond set in silver. "I know it is not much," Isaac said. "It is perfect," Bridget interrupted. "You are perfect." "Well, not perfect," she corrected with a laugh, "but perfect for me." They set their wedding date for September, giving themselves time to plan and for Isaac to make arrangements for the land purchase. Unlike Bridget's first wedding, which had been rushed and built on unstable foundations, this one would be carefully considered and built on trust and genuine love. Bridget found herself actually excited to plan the wedding. She sewed her own dress, a simple but elegant creation in cream-colored silk. Isaac worked extra hours to save more money, determined to provide well for his future wife. They spent their evenings together making plans for the house, for the ranch, for their life together. "I want you to keep the store if you want to," Isaac said one evening. "I know it is important to you, and I would never ask you to give it up." "I have been thinking about that," Bridget said. "I think I would like to hire someone to run it, maybe come in a few days a week myself. The store gave me purpose when I needed it, but now I want to build something new with you." "Are you sure?" "I am sure." And she was. The store had been her refuge, but she did not need a refuge anymore. She had found something better, a partner, a true partner who respected her strength and supported her dreams. The summer passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Isaac finalized the purchase of his land and began making preliminary plans for the house. Bridget trained a young widow named Sarah to take over most of the store's operations. They attended church together on Sundays, had dinner with friends, lived their lives openly as a couple in love. On a warm evening in early September, 3 nights before their wedding, Bridget and Isaac sat on the porch behind the store, watching fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. "Are you nervous?" Isaac asked, holding her hand. "A little," Bridget admitted. "But not for the reasons you might think. I am not afraid of marrying you. I am just remembering how wrong things went last time, and sometimes my mind tries to tell me that something terrible will happen again." Isaac was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I cannot promise that our life will be perfect or that nothing bad will ever happen. Life is uncertain, and we both know that. But I can promise that I will face whatever comes with you as your partner. I will not leave you to deal with things alone. I will not lie to you or deceive you, and I will love you through whatever challenges we face." Bridget turned to look at him, this man who had waited so patiently, who had loved her through her fear and her walls. "I know you will. I trust you, Isaac, completely." "That means everything to me," he said softly. "Everything." Their wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, with a sky so blue it seemed painted. The ceremony was held in the small church, with half the town in attendance. Bridget wore her cream-colored dress and carried wildflowers Isaac had picked for her that morning. Isaac wore his best suit, brushed and pressed, his hair neatly combed. As Bridget walked down the aisle, she felt none of the anxious excitement that had marked her first wedding. Instead, she felt a deep, abiding peace. This was right. This was real. Isaac stood at the altar watching her approach, and the love in his eyes was unmistakable. The preacher led them through their vows, and when Isaac said, "I do," his voice was strong and certain. When it was Bridget's turn, she looked into his eyes and said, "I do," with equal certainty, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the preacher said. "You may kiss your bride." Isaac kissed her gently, sweetly, and the church erupted in applause. As they walked back down the aisle together, Bridget felt lighter than she had in years. The shadow of her past was finally beginning to lift, replaced by the bright promise of her future. The reception was held at the town hall, with food and music and dancing. Bridget laughed more that day than she could remember laughing in years. She danced with Isaac, with old friends, with her new father-in-law figure, the owner of the Rockingham Ranch who had given Isaac his start in Trinity. As the sun began to set, Isaac pulled her aside. "Ready to go home? Home." They would spend their wedding night in the room above the store one last time, before moving out to the ranch property where Isaac had built a small but comfortable temporary cabin while the main house was being constructed. "Yes," Bridget said, "I am ready." But as they walked toward the store, Bridget felt old fears rising. The last time she had walked toward her wedding night, it had ended in tragedy. What if something terrible happened again? What if this happiness was too good to be true? Isaac must have felt her tension because he stopped walking and turned to face her. "Bridget, what is wrong?" "I am sorry," she said, tears threatening. "I know I should not be thinking about it, but I cannot help remembering the last time you were a bride," Isaac finished. "I understand. That makes perfect sense. I do not want to ruin this night with memories of." Isaac pulled her close, holding her securely. "You are not ruining anything. Your past is part of you, part of what made you who you are. I would never expect you to just forget it or pretend it did not happen." "I love you," Bridget said, clinging to him. "I love you so much, and I am just so afraid something will take you away from me." "I am not going anywhere," Isaac said firmly. "I am here, right here, and I will be here tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. We are going to build a life together, Bridget. A real, solid life built on honesty and trust. Nothing is going to take that away." They stood there in the street for a long moment, holding each other while the sounds of the reception continued in the background. Finally, Bridget pulled back and wiped her eyes. "I am all right now. Let us go home." Their wedding night was tender and sweet, filled with love and gentleness. Isaac was patient with Bridget's lingering fears, taking time to reassure her, to make her feel safe and cherished. When she woke the next morning to find him sleeping peacefully beside her, very much alive and present, she felt something inside her finally release. The past did not have to define her future. She could love again. She could trust again. She could be happy again. Over the following months, they settled into married life with surprising ease. They moved into the temporary cabin on their land, living simply while the main house was being built. Isaac worked on the ranch during the day while also overseeing construction. Bridget helped where she could and spent a few days a week at the store, enjoying the work without being consumed by it. Their evenings were spent together, cooking dinner, talking about their days, making plans for the future. It was a quiet, domestic happiness that Bridget had never thought she would experience. There were challenges, of course. Money was tight as they built the ranch. The weather was unpredictable. They had disagreements, as all couples do. But they faced everything together, talking through problems, supporting each other, growing stronger as a unit. One evening in January, as they sat by the fire in their cabin, Bridget said, "I have something to tell you." Isaac looked up from the harness he was repairing. "What is it?" "I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." Isaac's face transformed with joy. He set aside the harness and pulled her into his arms. "Are you sure?" "As sure as I can be. I saw the doctor in town today. He thinks the baby will come in late summer." "A baby," Isaac said wonderingly. "Our baby." Then he pulled back slightly, concern crossing his face. "How do you feel? Are you all right? Do you need anything?" Bridget laughed. "I am fine. The doctor says I am healthy and everything looks normal, but Isaac, I am a little scared." "Of course you are. Having a baby is a big thing." "No, I mean I am scared of being a mother. What if I am not good at it? What if something goes wrong? What if—" Isaac placed a gentle finger on her lips. "You are going to be a wonderful mother. I have seen how caring you are, how strong you are, and whatever happens, we will face it together. You are not alone in this, Bridget. You will never be alone again." Tears slipped down Bridget's cheeks, but they were happy tears. "I love you so much." "I love you too. Both of you," he said, placing a hand gently on her still flat stomach. The months of Bridget's pregnancy passed with surprising swiftness. The main house was completed in April, a beautiful two-story structure with a wide porch and large windows that let in plenty of light. They moved in with excitement, filling the rooms with simple but sturdy furniture Isaac had made himself or purchased in town. Bridget's belly grew round and full. She continued working at the store in the early months, but eventually had to admit that she needed to rest more. Isaac was attentive without being overbearing, making sure she had everything she needed while also respecting her independence. "I am pregnant, not fragile," she reminded him one day when he tried to carry everything for her. "I know," Isaac said with a grin, "but I like taking care of you. Let me enjoy it." How could she argue with that? In August, on a hot Sunday afternoon, Bridget's labor began. Isaac rode hard to fetch the midwife, a capable woman named Mrs. Henderson who had delivered most of the babies in Trinity for the past 20 years. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. Isaac stayed by Bridget's side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, murmuring encouragement. There were moments when Bridget wanted to give up, when the pain seemed too much, but Isaac's steady presence gave her strength. Finally, as the sun was setting on Monday evening, their son was born, announcing his arrival with a lusty cry that made both parents laugh through their tears. "He is perfect," Mrs. Henderson said, wrapping the baby and placing him in Bridget's arms. "A healthy boy with a good set of lungs." Bridget looked down at her son, at his tiny red face and waving fists, and felt her heart expand in a way she had not known was possible. This was her child, hers and Isaac's, a living symbol of their love and their future. "What should we name him?" Isaac asked, gently touching the baby's soft hair. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but had not settled on anything definite. Now, looking at her son, Bridget knew exactly what his name should be. "William," she said, "after your father." Isaac's eyes filled with tears. "Are you sure?" "I am sure. William Vaughn, it is a good, strong name." "It is perfect," Isaac said, kissing first his son and then his wife. "You are both perfect. I am the luckiest man alive." The early weeks with baby William were exhausting but joyful. He was a hungry, active baby who kept his parents busy day and night, but neither Bridget nor Isaac minded. They took turns walking the floor with him at night, marveling at every tiny change, every new expression. "I never knew I could love someone so much," Bridget said one night as she nursed William. "It is almost frightening how much I love him." "I know what you mean," Isaac said. "I look at him and I think about all the things I want to teach him, all the things I want to show him. I want to be a good father." "You will be," Bridget said confidently. "You are already a wonderful father." As William grew from an infant to a chubby, cheerful baby, the ranch prospered. Isaac's hard work and careful planning paid off. The cattle herd grew. He sold some horses at a good profit. They were not wealthy by any means, but they were comfortable and secure, building equity and a future. Bridget found that she loved ranch life in a way she had not expected. She loved the wide, open spaces, the rhythm of the seasons, the satisfaction of building something with her own hands. She kept a garden, learned to preserve food, helped with the animals when needed. The store seemed like a lifetime ago, though she still visited occasionally to see how Sarah was managing. When William was 2 years old, Bridget discovered she was pregnant again. This time there was no fear, only joy. She knew what to expect, knew she could do it, knew Isaac would be there supporting her every step of the way. Their daughter was born the following spring on a rainy April morning, coming into the world much more quickly than her brother had. They named her Grace, because Bridget said that grace was what had brought them together, grace that had given her the courage to love again. Grace was a quieter baby than William had been, content to watch the world with solemn blue eyes. William, now a toddling, talking whirlwind, was fascinated by his baby sister and wanted to help with everything. "Gentle," Bridget reminded him constantly as he tried to pet Grace's soft hair or kiss her tiny hands. Life settled into a new rhythm with 2 children. The days were full and busy, often exhausting, but Bridget had never been happier. She would sometimes stop in the middle of her work and look around at her life, at her beautiful house and healthy children and loving husband, and feel overwhelming gratitude. She had been so broken, so sure she would never be whole again, and yet here she was, living a life richer and fuller than she had ever imagined possible. One evening when William was 4 and Grace was 2, after the children were asleep, Bridget and Isaac sat on their porch watching the sunset. It had become a ritual for them, this quiet time together at the end of the day. "Do you remember the first time I asked you to dinner?" Isaac asked suddenly. Bridget laughed. "How could I forget? I turned you down flat." You did. I was so nervous asking, and when you said no, I thought that was it. But then I remembered something my father told me once. He said that anything worth having is worth waiting for, so I decided to wait. You waited a long time, Bridget said softly, taking his hand. It was worth every second. You were worth every second. Isaac turned to look at her, his gray eyes as warm and steady as they had been the day they met. I would wait 100 years for you, Bridget. I love you more now than I did the day we married, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today. That is how it works with us. I love you too, Bridget said, leaning her head on his shoulder. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for seeing past my fear and my walls. Thank you for waiting. I told you I would wait as long as it takes, Isaac said, kissing the top of her head. And I meant it. I always mean what I say to you. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Bridget thought about her journey. She thought about the girl she had been, naive and trusting. She thought about the broken widow she had become, convinced she would never be whole again. And she thought about the woman she was now, strong and loved and happy. The fear had not disappeared completely. Sometimes, in the dark of night, old nightmares would surface. But now, when she woke from those dreams, Isaac was there beside her, solid and real, and the fear would fade in the face of his steady presence. She had learned that loving again after loss was not about forgetting the past or pretending it did not happen. It was about having the courage to believe that the future could be different, that happiness was possible again, that trust could be rebuilt. It was about finding someone who understood that healing took time, who was willing to wait, who loved you enough to let you set the pace. Isaac had been that person for her. He had waited as long as it took, never pushing, never demanding, just steadily showing her through his actions that he was trustworthy, that he was genuine, that he was there for the long haul. And in doing so, he had given her the greatest gift imaginable, the courage to live again, to love again, to believe in happily ever after one more time. The years continued to unfold, bringing both challenges and blessings. When William was 7 and Grace was 5, Bridget gave birth to twin boys, Jacob and James, who kept the entire household in cheerful chaos. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Isaac hired help as needed, and eventually William began helping with the ranch work, learning from his father just as Isaac had learned from his. Grace turned out to have a talent for numbers and helped Bridget keep the ranch accounts. The twins were inseparable troublemakers who could nevertheless charm their way out of any punishment with matching dimpled grins. Bridget and Isaac grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. They faced droughts and harsh winters, sick children and lean financial times, but they faced everything together, just as Isaac had promised on their wedding day. Their partnership was built on mutual respect and genuine affection, and it only strengthened over time. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Isaac took Bridget back to the spot where he had proposed, the rise overlooking their land. So much had changed since that day. Where there had been empty grassland, there was now a thriving ranch with a beautiful house, several outbuildings, corrals, and pastures full of cattle and horses. "Look at what we built," Isaac said, his arm around Bridget's waist. "What you built," Bridget corrected. "You did the hard work." "No," Isaac said firmly. "What we built together. None of this would mean anything without you. You are my partner in everything, Bridget. Always have been, always will be." Bridget looked out over their land at the life they had created together and felt profound contentment. She thought about the woman she had been 15 years ago, so afraid and so certain she would never be happy again. If she could go back and tell that woman what the future held, she would hardly believe it. "I am so glad you did not give up on me," Bridget said quietly. "I am so glad you waited." "I told you I would wait as long as it takes," Isaac replied, pulling her close. "That was not just words. That was a promise, one I was ready to keep for however long you needed." "I know. And that is why I eventually found the courage to love you, because you gave me time. You gave me space. You let me heal at my own pace." They stood there together, watching the sun set over their land, over their life, holding each other the way they had held each other through 1,000 sunsets before and would hold each other through 1,000 more to come. The children grew up, as children do. William took over more and more of the ranch operations, eventually becoming a full partner with his father. He married a kind young woman from a neighboring ranch, and they built a house on the property, continuing the Vaughn legacy. Grace married a banker from town, a solid, intelligent man who appreciated her sharp mind and independent spirit. She remained close to her family, visiting often with her own children. The twins went into business together, opening a horse trading operation that became quite successful, though they never moved far from the family ranch. As Bridget and Isaac grew older, their hair turning gray and their faces gaining lines, their love remained constant. They were grandparents now, watching their children raise families of their own, passing down values of hard work, honesty, and faithfulness. On a warm summer evening when Bridget was 60 and Isaac was 63, they sat on their porch as they had done countless times before. Isaac's joints were stiffer than they used to be, and Bridget's hands showed the marks of years of hard work, but they were still together, still happy, still in love. "You ever think about how different your life might have been if you had not come to Trinity?" Bridget asked. "Sometimes," Isaac admitted, "but I always come back to the same conclusion. Everything I did, every choice I made led me to you, and that makes it all worthwhile." "I was so broken when you met me," Bridget said softly. "I did not think I would ever heal, but you did heal." "You are one of the strongest people I know, Bridget. You faced terrible pain and loss, and you did not let it destroy you. You let yourself love again, even though you were terrified. That takes real courage." "I had help," Bridget said, smiling at him. "I had a patient cowboy who was willing to wait as long as it takes." Isaac laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "Best decision I ever made, waiting for you. Best decision by far." As the sun set on another day, Bridget reflected on the fullness of her life. She had known profound loss and profound love. She had been broken and made whole. She had been afraid and found courage. And through it all, Isaac had been beside her, patient and steady and true. Their love story was not the quick, passionate romance of fairy tales. It was something better, deeper, more real. It was the story of two people who found each other, who chose each other, who worked together to build a life of meaning and purpose and joy. It was a story of patience and persistence, of trust earned and kept, of promises made and honored. It was the story of a woman who was afraid to trust again, and a cowboy who said he would wait as long as it takes. And in the end, the waiting had been worth it, for both of them, because it had led to a love that lasted a lifetime. Years continued to pass in that gentle way of established lives. The ranch was now primarily run by William and his wife, with Isaac serving as an advisor, still sharp and knowledgeable even as his body slowed. Bridget spent her days tending her garden, visiting with grandchildren, and still, always, sitting with Isaac on their porch in the evenings. Their 50th wedding anniversary was celebrated with a large party attended by what seemed like half of Trinity. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren filled the house and yard. The store Bridget had once run was now owned by Sarah's daughter, but the woman made a special trip to the ranch to celebrate with them. 50 years, the preacher said, raising a glass in toast. 50 years of marriage is a testament to love, commitment, and faithfulness. Isaac and Bridget Vaughn are an example to us all of what a true partnership looks like. As the celebration continued around them, Isaac and Bridget found a quiet moment alone in their bedroom. They stood by the window, looking out at the land they had built together, at the family they had raised. 50 years, Bridget said wonderingly. Where did the time go? I do not know, Isaac said, but I would not trade a single day of it. Well, maybe that day when the twins let all the chickens out and we spent 6 hours catching them. Bridget laughed, the sound as bright and genuine as it had been when she was young. Or the time William tried to ride that unbroken stallion and ended up in the water trough. Or when Grace decided to reorganize all the ranch accounts and mixed everything up so thoroughly it took us a month to sort it out. They continued reminiscing, remembering the funny moments and the hard ones, the triumphs and the struggles, all the pieces that had made up their life together. Every memory was precious, every moment a treasure. I love you, Bridget said finally. I have loved you for so long now that I cannot remember what life was like before you. I love you too, Isaac replied, holding her close. Always have, always will. You are my heart, Bridget. You always have been. Isaac passed away peacefully in his sleep 5 years later at the age of 68, with Bridget holding his hand. He had lived a good, full life, surrounded by family and love until the very end. Bridget mourned him deeply, genuinely, but without the devastating brokenness that had marked her first widowhood. This grief was different, softer somehow, because she had known true partnership, true love, and she was grateful for every moment they had shared. She lived another 7 years without him, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, supported and loved by the large family they had built together. She remained in the house they had built, tending her garden, sitting on the porch, remembering. On a warm September evening, the same month she and Isaac had married so many years before, Bridget passed away quietly, simply closing her eyes and not opening them again. She was found the next morning by Grace, looking peaceful and content, as if she had simply gone to sleep. The funeral was large, with people coming from all over the county to pay their respects. Bridget Keller Vaughn had been loved and respected, a woman of strength and grace who had overcome tragedy to build a beautiful life. She was buried next to Isaac on the rise overlooking their ranch, the spot where he had proposed so many years before. The marker was simple but eloquent. Bridget Keller Vaughn, beloved wife, mother, and friend. She learned to love again. The ranch continued to thrive under William's management, passed down through generations of Vaughns who had inherited not just land and cattle, but also the values their grandparents had instilled: honesty, hard work, faithfulness, and the understanding that real love is worth waiting for. The story of Isaac and Bridget became something of a legend in Trinity, told and retold over the years, especially to young people struggling with heartbreak or fear. It was a story about patience and persistence, about how love could heal even the deepest wounds if given time and care. It was a story about a woman who was afraid to trust again, and a cowboy who said he would wait as long as it takes. And in the end, it was a story about how sometimes the best things in life come to those who are willing to wait, who are willing to be patient, who understand that real love is not built in a moment, but rather cultivated over years through countless small acts of kindness and faithfulness. The general store in Trinity still stood, though it had changed hands many times over the years. The church where they married still held services every Sunday. The ranch they built still raised cattle and horses, still stood as a testament to what two people could build together when they worked as true partners. And on summer evenings, If you stood on the rise where Isaac proposed and where they were both now buried, you could almost feel their presence, could almost hear the echo of their laughter, could almost see them sitting on their porch, holding hands, watching the sunset together one more time. Their love story was not famous beyond Trinity, not written in any history books or told in any ballads. But to the people who knew them, to the family they raised, to the community they were part of, it was a story that mattered. It was proof that love could endure, that trust could be rebuilt, that patience and faithfulness were virtues that led to lasting happiness. Isaac Vaughn had promised to wait as long as it takes for Bridget Keller to be ready to love again. He had kept that promise, waiting patiently through months of her fear and resistance, never pushing, never demanding, simply showing up consistently and proving through his actions that he was worthy of her trust. And Bridget, for her part, had found the courage to tear down the walls she had built around her heart, to take the terrifying risk of loving again, to believe that not all men were liars and that happiness was possible even after devastating loss. Together, they had built something rare and precious, a love based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and unwavering commitment. They had raised a family, built a successful ranch, and created a legacy that would last for generations. Their story was a reminder that healing takes time, that patience is a virtue, and that the best things in life are worth waiting for. It was a story about second chances and new beginnings, about the power of consistent kindness and the importance of keeping promises. Most of all, it was a love story, pure and simple, about two people who found each other, chose each other, and built a life together that was richer and fuller than either could have imagined. It was not a perfect love story because life is not perfect, but it was a real one, honest and true, built on a foundation of trust that had been carefully earned and faithfully maintained. And in the end, is that not what we all hope for? A love that is patient and kind, a love that endures through hardship and celebrates through joy, a love that makes us better people and gives our lives meaning and purpose. Isaac and Bridget Vaughn had found that kind of love, and in finding it, they had shown everyone around them that such love was possible, even for those who thought they were too broken to ever be whole again. Their legacy lived on in their descendants, in the values they passed down, in the story that continued to be told long after they were gone. And perhaps that is the truest measure of a life well lived. Not fame or fortune, but the positive impact left on others, the love shared, the family raised, the example set. The ranch still stands, over a century later, still in the Vaughn family, still raising cattle and horses, still a testament to what two people built together, starting with nothing but love and determination. The current generation of Vaughns knows the story of their ancestors, knows about the widow who was afraid to trust again, and the cowboy who waited as long as it takes. They know because it matters, because it is a story worth remembering, because it reminds them that the best things in life cannot be rushed, that patience and persistence pay off, that real love is worth fighting for and waiting for. And sometimes, on warm September evenings, when the family gathers at the ranch for reunions and celebrations, someone will suggest walking up to the rise where Isaac and Bridget are buried. They will stand there, looking out over the land their ancestors built, and they will remember. They will remember that love can heal, that trust can be rebuilt, that second chances are possible. They will remember that a patient heart and faithful actions can overcome even the deepest fears. They will remember that the words, "I will wait as long as it takes," were not just empty promises, but a sacred commitment that changed two lives and created a legacy that would last for generations. And in remembering, They will carry forward the values that Isaac and Bridget lived by, passing them down to their own children, ensuring that the story never truly ends, but continues to inspire and guide, generation after generation. A timeless reminder of what real love looks like and what it can accomplish when given time, patience, and faithful commitment. The story of Isaac and Bridget Vaughn is ultimately a story of hope, a story that says no matter how broken we might feel, no matter how afraid we are to trust again, there is always the possibility of healing, always the chance for a new beginning, always the hope that somewhere out there is someone willing to wait as long as it takes for us to be ready to love again. And that, in the end, is a message worth remembering, worth sharing, worth living by. Because we all need hope. We all need to believe that our past does not have to determine our future, that our wounds can heal, that love is possible even after loss. Isaac and Bridget proved it was possible. Their life together, their love for each other, their family, their legacy, all of it stands as proof that patience and persistence and faithfulness lead to something beautiful, something lasting, something worth having. They started with broken pieces, with fear and uncertainty, with a widow who could not trust and a cowboy who promised to wait. And from those unpromising beginnings, they built a love story for the ages, a testament to the power of patience, the importance of keeping promises, and the miraculous healing properties of genuine, faithful, patient love. Their story is over now, at least in the mortal sense. But in another way, it continues, living on in the hearts and minds of those who know it, inspiring others to have patience, to keep faith, to believe in the possibility of love even when it seems impossible. And perhaps that is the greatest legacy anyone can leave. Not wealth or fame, but a story that matters, a life that inspires, a love that endures beyond death itself, continuing to touch lives and give hope long after the original participants have returned to dust. Isaac and Bridget Vaughn lived, loved, and left this world better than they found it. Their story reminds us that the best things in life come to those who wait, that real love is patient and kind and faithful, and that no matter how broken we might feel, healing is possible if we have the courage to try and the patience to let it happen in its own time. That is their gift to us, their legacy, their story. And it is a gift worth accepting, a legacy worth honoring, a story worth remembering and sharing for as long as stories are told and love is valued. The end came gently for their tale, with satisfaction and fulfillment, with a life well lived and a love well expressed. They had started afraid and alone, and they had ended together, surrounded by the fruits of their love and labor, having built something that would outlast them both. What more could anyone ask for? What better ending could there be? They had faced fear and overcome it. They had rebuilt trust from ashes. They had created beauty from brokenness. And they had done it together, step by patient step, day by faithful day, year by loving year. Isaac Vaughn had said he would wait as long as it takes, and he had meant it. Bridget Keller had been afraid to trust again, but she had found the courage to try. Together, they had created something extraordinary from those simple beginnings. A love that lasted a lifetime, a family that continued for generations, a legacy that would never be forgotten. And in the end, that is what matters most. Not how the story begins, but how it unfolds and where it leads. Isaac and Bridget's story began in pain and fear, but it ended in joy and fulfillment. And everything in between was a testament to the power of patient, faithful, genuine love. Their story is complete now, fully told, properly ended, with all threads resolved and all promises kept. It is a good ending, a satisfying ending, the kind of ending that leaves you feeling warm and hopeful and believing that despite all the hardships of life, Love really can conquer all, as long as we are willing to be patient, to be faithful, and to wait as long as it takes for the right person at the right time. Isaac and Bridget found their right person in each other, and that made all the difference. The waiting was worth it. The patience paid off. The trust, once rebuilt, lasted forever. And the love they shared became the foundation for generations of happiness and prosperity. What a beautiful ending. What a perfect conclusion. What a wonderful life they built together, starting from broken pieces and patient waiting, and ending in completeness and satisfaction and joy. This is their story, fully told, properly ended, complete in every way. A love story for the ages, set in the Wild West, featuring a woman afraid to trust again and a cowboy who promised to wait as long as it takes. He kept his promise. She found her courage. Together, they built a life worth living and a love worth remembering. And now their story is done, told in full, ended properly, with every promise kept, every fear overcome, every dream realized. May we all be so fortunate in love. May we all find someone willing to wait as long as it takes. And may we all have the courage to trust again when the right person comes along. The end.